Hello, I'm Scotty, a real-life bard, and this is Scotty Tells a Story, the story of the folkloric legend of Saint Kenelm. To tell my story today, I will be drawing from two primary sources. First, Folklore and Mysteries of the Cotswolds by Mark Turner, and secondly, a real bludgeoning instrument, the thickest book I own, The Lore of the Land by Westward and Simpson. Our tale takes place in the Kingdom of Mercia in the year 788 AD. Now, if you're not familiar with the Kingdom of Mercia, just imagine that you're an extra in Monty Python's Quest for the Holy Grail. You've got poo on you, and you can probably hear coconut halves clacking together all across the countryside. The king is Kenelm. King Kenelm establishes a monastery in Winchcombeshire, the capital. King Kenelm dies. This creates a succession crisis, though King Kenelm does have 3 children. The eldest, his daughter, Quendretta, is 17, and in some accounts is widely regarded as a well-read person, which is a feat unto itself because we're in the Dark Ages here. The middle child, another daughter, whose name is lost to history. I don't give her good odds on ascending the throne. And finally we meet 7-year-old Kenelm, a boy. Dear viewer, who do you think ascends the throne? Yeah, history's kind of always been like this. So, Kenelm is declared king, but he's 7. What does every good child king need? A mentor, a tutor, someone to keep a steady hand on the rudder of the king until he comes of age. Here we meet Ascobert. In some versions of this story, his name is Askbert. Delightful. Ascobert and Kenelm head off into the countryside on a hunting trip in the Clent Hills. A real opportunity to bond, get to know each other, forge that friendship that is going to see Kenelm to greatness on the throne. It is at this point, I should tell you, that Ascobert and Quendretta are dating. Well, being a 7-year-old, Kenelm needs to lie down for a little nap or do. And while he's doing this, Ascobert starts digging a child-size grave. For no reason in particular that I could think of. Unfortunately for Ascobert, Kenelm wakes up while he's digging this child-sized grave. And he utters the only quote I could find from any of the tellings of this story. Imagine a 7-year-old opening his mouth and uttering, "This is not the place ordained for you to kill me." It's weird, because he's a child. Though I guess this might be Ascobert's fault. He's the tutor, the mentor. Probably taught him a lot of those words and how to say it in a strange way. Though, if you've ever had a conversation with a 7-year-old, they're missing like 9 ums, a request for a snack, and also letting you know, matter-of-factly, that they have a project due at school tomorrow. Moving on. So, in some tellings of this story, Kenelm plunges a twig of ash into the ground, and black flowers bloom around him. But in other tales, it's human hair sprouting out of the ground. God, I love folklore. Naturally, Ascobert takes this as a moment to reevaluate his life, and says, you know what? That's fine. Let's pop on down the road a little bit. So they do that. Awkwardly, I might imagine. Probably not a lot of conversation. But Quendretta must have had quite a hold on Ascobert, because they walk just a little bit down the road, and then Ascobert laps off the kid's head. Ooh, I guess technically Kenelm was correct with that prophecy. Still dead. Here's the fun part, though. As we all know, when a head is removed from a body, say it with me, what happens? A dove emerges and flies away, carrying a scroll. A tale as old as time. But where does this dove go? Why, it flies to the east. No, not to Cadbury World, beyond the likes of the chocolatey amusement park located just east of the Clent Hills. This dove flies to Rome and drops the scroll at the feet of the Pope. Obviously. The Pope, upon reading this, realizes, uh-oh, it's in English, and I don't speak English. But fortunately for the Pope, there is an Englishman in his court who's able to translate. Oh no, a crime has been committed, delivered by a dove. It's a miracle. So the Pope follows the natural order of dispatching the troops, so to speak, as you would expect in this instance. He gets a hold of the Bishop of Canterbury, who gets a hold of the monks at that abbey in Winchcombeshire that I very expertly seated at the beginning of this story. And those monks reach out to a specialist, someone who knows the Clent Hills better than anyone else. A cow. Well? And believe it or not, the cow finds the dead king's body, as well as the blade used to sever his head, hastily buried under a bush, because I don't know if you've ever had to dig 2 child-sized graves in one day, but that second one, it just never comes out as good. Now, Quendretta is quite upset, because obviously everyone knew that Kenelm and Ascobert were alone together in the hills. The king is found dead in the hills, and this thing is kind of unraveling at her feet. She watches the funeral procession of her dead brother passing through town, and she curses the procession. How? Why, of course, by reading the atheist's psalm from the Bible backwards. Which psalm, you ask, is the atheist psalm? Well, according to these texts, Psalm 108. But I have seen several different psalms referred to in different books and other accounts, even within these books, as different psalms. And if you give it a Google, you can find them all. None of them are terribly spectacular or interesting, which is why I'm not going to read them here. But the interesting part here is what happens when you curse the child funeral procession of a soon-to-be canonized king. Why, that's right. You guessed it. Her eyes burst. Her eyes burst. Do we not have the scene for this? It got cut. Why? You're broke. That tracks.